This is going to be another episode of the hidden history stuff. It's kind of a humid day, so we might get some noise carrying in. Okay, so this particular one will go back to 2009. The people that were involved in it are not aware of this backstory. I never could run into them later because I kept a lot of this stuff to myself. And there were various reasons for it. So, speaking of noise. Alright. It's going to be a long video, right? Hope not. The noise is just traveling much longer, much further with all the humidity. So you could probably still hear some of it now. Anyway, I want to try to do as few breaks in this as I can, but I might have to do that. So why was I keeping things to myself during this time period? Well, I had just gotten more involved with the Forest Preserve District on a more official level. And of course the paranormal aspects was a little taboo. And even when I was starting this around 20 years old, 22 years old, here we come again. Whew. So anyway, there was a time where the real estate management office that owns the cemetery was really suspicious that a young person would be interested in this place for anything other than the paranormal. So, and I guess rightfully so, you have your suspicions. But as time goes on, we start getting permission and we started cleaning up the place. Things happened where some of the public was complaining when they couldn't come in during the cleanups, and it created noise. And that's when the real estate office decided that no more use of chainsaws, because we were renting them from Home Depot, or I was, trimmers and stuff like that. Wow, there's a lot of planes today. Friday's the busiest day of plane activity, and I like to record these videos at Bachelors Grove Cemetery itself in the woods, so that I can have a better, it just feels better to do it, plus I can just have a better memory recall of things. Anyway, so I'll probably just have to skip over this other gobbledygook with the activity with the forest preserves and the real estate office. Basically, the bottom line was eventually we did get some support from the Forest Preserve District. It was cleanup permits only at that time, so litter cleanup, you still needed a permit for that. And here's where we get to the more strange history that deals with the paranormal. So during that time period, I'm getting more and more with this, putting these thoughts out, and I'm seeing these reactions in the environment, right? And at one point, while we were getting these cleanups, I thought, man, it would be really interesting if volunteers would experience this stuff live on the scene. Because that was part of the game. You know, I put these thoughts out, and then I watch other people go through stuff, and occasionally me, but it was always fun to watch people go through stuff, especially when I would be here. So I thought, okay, this would be a good time to do this. So I wanted to understand the process of electronic voice phenomena, EVP, and what might be behind it. And I know a lot of people think it's all dead stuff, but you know, I'm just starting very basic, very simple, trying to understand the phenomena, and maybe then I will understand what could be behind what's producing these voices, such as just using a basic audio recorder, asking a question, not hearing anything at the time. When you play it back, you hear something. Now, some people get these things where like, ooh, do you hear that? And you got to listen really hard. No, I like the ones that are obviously loud, and we were getting results of that kind. Not so much in my own personal possession, my personal recordings, but I'm going through stuff and I'm hearing stuff live on the scene. Sometimes I would get a copy, sometimes I won't. And you get a feel for these people that, no, they're getting results. I get it. They're getting results out here, but what is it? Why some of these people were not eventually releasing their material is left to speculation. Maybe they were worried about ridicule. Maybe the material wasn't good enough. Some of that was good enough to me. You know, whatever the reason is, on top of it, I wasn't getting my own real results. Nothing that I would really want to publish anyway, but it was enough to say, okay, there's something going on, whether it would be here or I would even try things at home. Anyway, so I thought this was a perfect time, maybe get some volunteers to have some experience. Maybe we can actually get some electronic voice phenomena and then, you know, learn some things. Anyway, so it was around this one point where I put this thought out. Understanding EVP itself. I know that we're getting results, but what about the mechanics of it? How do I understand the mechanics of this? And you try it with science, you know, including the theory of an understanding of electronics and stuff like that, and the whole history of EVP. If you get into it, it's pretty fascinating to maybe put the pieces of the puzzle together. But what about out here? So I laid out a scenario in my head. I put this thought out. I said, can we have a physical reaction with an audible response? Meaning, like something had occurred, and then maybe they react to it, and then you get a verbal response out of nowhere that those people did not hear. And we ended up getting one. So a few weeks to about a month later, somewhere around that period, um, a few weeks, about a month later, we're doing a cleanup. And because it was litter only, I thought maybe we should pick a good spot where there was a lot of glass and kind of a hazard, basically. A lot of old material from the 1930s, and it was mostly broken. So cleaning it up, even though it bothered me a little bit because it was old, like it kind of needed to be done anyway. So let's take care of this. Sun's coming out. So those of you on this particular day, it was actually, was it July 27, 2009? I'll pop up the permit here to get an idea. So those of you on that day might remember this particular incident. And because we pulled out, like, I think it was 15 something bags of garbage from this one location. And get the sun up. Sun's bright. And so these two guys, well, one guy in particular comes walking up, and I thought it was one of the volunteers. He just seemed familiar or whatever. And he's like, hey, you know, how you doing? I forget the whole conversation, but hey, I got something. We just recorded this, and I thought it was that particular day, but no, it was prior to the cleanup, actually. And only by about 10 days. He goes, we were out here. It was not his first time, but it was his buddy's first time at that point. And he's like, we went through this experience, and some of you will probably recall this because it ended up on the news, and there's a reason why, and I'll explain. Where they were out here, and this guy had this camera, this old-fashioned camera, and it was in the bag, and he felt his bag moving, and he realized that no, his bag wasn't moving, or like, because it was caught on something, it was moving on its own. And his other buddy, who was downhill, was recording on an old-fashioned phone, where they were just starting to get audio recorders in these things. I don't even know if his model even had a camera at the time, but he's trying for electronic voice phenomena, EVP. And he sees the bag moving, and he sees his buddy freaking out, and his buddy's going, you know, fuck this, fuck that, you know, that kind of thing. And then he says, are you the one who just scared my friend Doug? So this guy plays this recording off his phone. I see the time, date, stamp, that kind of thing. And, you know, I don't even need headphones or anything. You can just clearly hear that something's being responded to. And I'm like, you know, please get in touch with me. I want to get details of the phone, of your general day, get a nice clear, as clear as we can, recording off your phone, convert it somehow, however you're going to do this. And I would like to do an interview. Eventually, I did do an interview back in the woods here, and I'll play that toward the end. Just your basic raw, you know, response from these two guys. It was actually Doug Larson and Andy Seitz, otherwise known as Ando among friends. So this might trigger some memories on this whole incident, this recording that went out. And so I'm getting a feel for these guys, you know, like I'm hearing their story, I'm hearing this sincerity, you know, this whole thing's kind of playing out in a certain way where I'm like, I have a lot of confidence in this. But one of my sanity checks when I do this, when you put a thought out, one of the problems is if you're precognitive and you know things ahead of time, you know, so there's this aspect of, are you picking up on information in the future, and you're so-called, I call it mind fucking yourself, creating something out of nothing in a scenario. You know, what I put out is basically what we got back in a lot of ways. And I thought, okay, well, wait a minute. Okay, is what they got real or not real? Am I doing the precog thing? Am I making something out of nothing? As far as I can tell, I've never done that, but it is still a part of my sanity check. And as crazy as that sounds, how could it be part of a sanity check? As crazy as it sounds, it's just what I do. And, you know, but basically you're getting these responses. Sun again. You're getting these responses, you know, like, okay, it's separate of you. You're seeing something happening in your environment that's related to what you're putting your thoughts out on. And there are times when I wonder why I formulate these questions in my head at the time that I do. So I wonder also, is it really my own thoughts and my own questions and my own theories that I'm going through? Because I haven't repeated all in the meditation. I gave you a basic outline because I'm doing things physics in my head, trying to understand, based on what I know about physics anyway, how to understand like how the mechanics of EVP. And so all this stuff plays out in a really weird way. But all I need to care about right now is that, okay, the event occurred. We're getting this response. There is the sincerity. Their story is not changing. If you add some details, that's fine. It doesn't necessarily change the whole dynamic of the story. I don't think in this situation they ever changed anything. But I found it interesting. Yeah, it did happen on a cleanup. At least the volunteers were able to, have this experience of seeing these people go through an experience. Loosely fits, right? Turns out, no, this guy wasn't, that showed me Andy, he wasn't a volunteer per se, even though I thought he was one at first. He did become one later on, for what it's worth. And, even the sincerity in that, he coming out, yeah, you call me a volunteer, but I really wasn't a volunteer, but I really want to help you out, man. You seem like a really cool dude, and, I really appreciate you giving us some coverage on the news, which, by the way, is something I would normally never do. Because I like the mom and pop situations. You're out here, they're recording something for maybe, if it is YouTube or something personal, whatever it may be, it's the mom and pop scenario. When you're dealing with news crews, you're dealing with gnats. Good analogy there. Sometimes these news outlets have to, and for whatever their reasons, fabricate material. And actually that kind of happened in this particular case. When I usually get a call from, whether it's Fox or Channel 7 or whatever, I would kind of just say no thank you, in my most polite way. In this case, I thought, man, this recording over time, I thought this really needs some coverage. People need to pay attention to something that it's real. It really happened. And so Fox calls. It was actually Tammy Souza, was it the weather girl? And she's like, I want to, do a story on the Grove. And I'm like, well, I've got something for you then. And this was this particular clip. Now when they came out, changing positions from the sun and noise, whatever. So when they came out, I had requested to Tammy, I said, look, I don't want to be labeled as a paranormal investigator because it's very taboo with the Forest Preserve District. They just don't want any ties with that. Things have changed over the years. But, at the time it was definitely taboo. I said, we're here. I brought them here so you can help document their experience on what had really happened. This is something that, because it's real, you don't need to be, telling fantastic tales. You got something cool today. I hope you enjoy it. And so eventually you see the broadcast where they're talking and stuff, and I even did a little behind the scenes stuff for the recording. They had them like recite where they were standing, and what they were talking about, that kind of stuff. And I think maybe even when we were walking down the trail, they did some filming. That's when I was actually telling Tammy, please don't say I'm a paranormal investigator. Just say I'm a steward, which was true, and just keep it at that. And so they go ahead and they do their thing, and they had a bad mic on these guys. They had like a loose wire, so that kind of sucked, a little scratchy noise. And what else was there? It wasn't until they got back to the station, I guess, and got to replay this, and they got a better feel for the sound of what had occurred. Now, the point that I also was trying to make on this, at least with the hidden history of it, is at the time, toward the end of the broadcast, it was starting to get dark, and she was going through she had this list of stuff she wanted to talk about. She was going through it, and I heard her say something about the splashing noises in the pond. And I walked up, I said, I got to tell you, none of that stuff's true. We don't hear, we don't get really reports of, bodies being, the sound of bodies splashing being thrown in the pond from like the Al Capone days. Because the Al Capone thing didn't even happen, which I talked about years later. But she actually said, yeah, I know, but it sounds good, so I'm just saying it. I'm going to say it anyway. God, that's why I don't want to do the news. Why would you do that? You have this cool stuff. And even at one point, there was a visitor that had come in. Oh no, wait, this was a different broadcast. There actually is a news broadcast. I'll say that for another day, where they thought something fake was going on. So let's scratch that. Now, what else is there? Yeah, the only other little tidbits behind the scenes, hidden history-wise, with that particular news clip was toward the end, Tammy's like, hey, I'd like to use some of your pictures or something for the newscast, and I said, well, look, what's on the website, the archives, planes. All right. The archives, and that the way it's presented, it's in a lawful manner, which is it's fair use. I said, well, I don't know how you're going to deal with it. If you see it's my material, hey, go ahead and do it. But if you see somebody else's name attached to it, talk to your lawyers, whatever you got at the station. You know, you understand how it is with fair use anyway. Just, you know, that's on you. You know, that's exactly what I told her. It's on you how you want to handle that. You know, I have no liability with this. You know, I've got nothing to do with it. You know, so I'm pre-warning you. You know, I'm not giving you permission. And sure enough, though, on the broadcast, they did use some pictures, fine, but then they put the wrong names attached to some of these pictures. Of course, you know, somebody's going to see that, like, hey, that's my material on TV, and they're going to get pissed off, especially if their name is not properly attached to it. So that did trigger somebody, and they contacted through email with Tammy, and Tammy replied. I found this out because then that person forwarded me what Tammy had said, and that I gave her permission, and no, you know, legally, and I'm hoping that person out there still understands that, you know, even if I were somehow to give, I can't give permission with somebody else's material without some written whatever, if you want to call it that way. What they did was probably still fair use, but the point is, you know, like, it's on them. Don't blame me. And then they said, well, I'll believe that, you know, Tammy over you any day. Okay, whatever, man. You know, what can I do about it? I do my best. So this is why I don't really like to get involved with the news crews, because there's that little bit of drama, and especially not telling the tales the right way or something like that. Just, that's pretty much it. So I'll play the clip here at the end of the interview and the clip that they get, and then I'll leave the broadcast at the end. I'm sure many of you saw this, but you know, it wouldn't be fair not to play it all at the end. And again, until next time.
First time I was here, we came and we were hoping to have some sort of experience of some type, and we were taking some photos, walking around, exploring the woods, looking at the cemetery itself, and it was kind of uneventful until towards the end when we were getting ready to leave. And at that time, our other two associates had left, went back to the car, and me and Andy went back to the cemetery to finish off some film that I had. And
it was about 6 o'clock on the July evening.
Yeah, summer evening, and I was up by the Fulton family monument, kind of up on the hill there, and Ando had his cell phone and was asking, all day he had been asking questions.
Doing numerous EVP works,
you know, somebody
asking for names, who wants to step forward, who wants to, you know, just let us know that they're there.
Talk to us, make, you know, some type of presence known. We were getting nothing out of the ordinary at all. It was just a regular summer afternoon. And he went out walking, and I decided to stay back kind of up on the hill and took wide shots to see if we could get any apparition or something on the film answering the questions that Andy was asking. And he was about 10, 15 feet away from me, and I was standing there taking some photos and heard a noise behind me, rustling, maybe a rabbit or something in the bushes behind me. I turned like so to look, nothing there. And when I turned back, I had a tugging on the back of my shirt. And I had thought that maybe I had caught a branch or something that was behind me. Turned back again, noticed that there was nothing there. And when I went back to look towards Andy to tell him, you know, hey, something started pulling. I had my camera bag with me. Something started pulling on my camera bag very, very hard.
Well, at this point, I turned around. I looked directly at him. I see the bag come up and down 3 times, very distinct, and he's holding it up here. And to my mind, at first, I said, you know what, that's not natural. Like, I shouldn't be seeing what I'm seeing right now. And then all of a sudden, I got the chills and said, oh man. So I have my recorder on, and I go running up there. And sure enough, like I ask, are you the one who just scared my friend? And clear as day, we get an answer, yes. So to me, to have an interaction with something was a pretty amazing feeling, especially for having it all happen at the same time and noticing such like a predominant like experience.
I had never experience actual physical contact like that. And
Like that.
you could see it on my face. Andy knew something was up.
Yeah.
But the entire mood had changed. Before it was just a nice summer day. After that, it was heavy. There was like a weight on my chest almost. The air was heavy. The vibe was different, and we decided it was probably time to go.
Would anyone here in Bachelors Grove Cemetery like to say anything? Could you tell me any of your names? My name's Ando. Were you the one who just scared my friend Doug?
Dude, fuck that. You go over there, dude. Go over there and ask. By that tree. Grab the fucking mirror. Dude. 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 Dude.
Deep in the forest preserves of southern Cook County lies what is known as the most haunted cemetery in the world. A long and winding gravel trail leads us to the overgrown and eerie entrance of Bachelors Grove, infamous for its unearthly images, strange sounds, and floating orbs. With me are paranormal investigators Andy Seitz and Doug Larson. It was here one afternoon during a photo and recording session they had the scare of a lifetime.
I thought my bag got caught on a bush or something. There was like tugging, because I was kind of moving around, taking pictures all around, just kind of general stuff. And I go turn around like this to look, and there's no bush on my bag. I go back this way, and all of a sudden, my bag, like something is yanking like a little kid.
And I turned around, and when I did, I saw his camera bag come up off his shoulder like this 3 times. He went ghost white. I went ghost white. And then I kind of snapped back to, and I came running over here with my recorder that was still going. And I asked, I said, "Are you the one who scared my friend?" It's the only thing I could think to say. And sure enough, as we reviewed it, we heard this voice come out of nowhere. Just ominous. Yes. And we both here got the chills, got the hair stand up on the back of our neck, and we both decided at that point we had kind of stayed out our welcome. And it was time to leave.
Here is the audio recording of that voice.
Were you the one who just scared my friend Doug?
Dude.
The encounter took place near this headstone, which is where this picture was taken. Scattered throughout the cemetery are old and crumbling headstones. Pete Cropia is a steward with the Forest Preserve, and he's heard all the ghostly tales.
The oldest headstone here is back from the 1830s. He's tied with a senator, of all things.
The most well-known apparition was a translucent woman dressed in old-fashioned clothes, seen perched on this headstone. And she was photographed with an infrared camera.
The photographer was just standing right behind us. They said they didn't see anything at the time. It's been reviewed by Kodak. Kodak couldn't give a definitive answer, so it remains a mystery.
Other ghostly images include this figure walking, and reports of black apparitions and blue floating orbs. The nearby pond is even haunted, with stories of a phantom farmhouse that appears, and weird splashing sounds, and ghostly mystery cars seen dumping bodies. There are nearly 200 bodies buried in this cemetery, and some of the paranormal activity has taken place with the headstones. This one has mysteriously moved from one end of the cemetery and back several times, and experts can't explain how that has happened. Above one headstone for a husband and wife, these unexplained circles have repeatedly appeared. And throughout the cemetery, visitors leave personal items for the ghostly inhabitants. As dusk begins, my guides urge us to leave quickly, because once night falls, anything is possible in the world's most haunted cemetery. Tammy Souza, Fox Chicago News.